For the next question, I'd love to hear about like, Ruhi, you talked about this a little bit. Like, what exactly is it that is the essential components of your degree? And Ellen, you talked a little bit about this too. But could you go over again? Like, what were those main components, and what did you feel was missing for what you had expected to see in a public health curriculum?
Sure. So for the health management track, so I did an MPH 65 in health management, and our curriculum, some of the requirements include financial analysis. We had to take health marketing. We had to take classes in organizational strategy, quantitative, qualitative research. A lot of what one might think are kind of basic fundamental public health foundational ideas. But what I found was missing and what I ended up taking as my elective courses were really all centered around community-based work. So whether they were, I took a course on community-based participatory research, which was through Chan. I took a course on community organizing, which was actually through HKS. I think a lot of what I found missing in the curriculum was just how much public health in general is about advocacy and activism. And no matter what the track is, I do feel like that should be a requirement. And I think that's where I found it challenging. And I think there was a difference between the education that I kind of sought out through my electives versus some of my peers who chose different electives. And we definitely did not get the same kind of education in that respect. And we're leaving Harvard with kind of a different idea, perhaps, of what public health fundamentally, from a foundational standpoint, includes and doesn't include. I think it's important to recognize for all students, regardless of if you're in biostatistics or in epidemiology, we also have to take those as our core courses. And sometimes we think those are more technical versus social and behavioral sciences. And I think it should be required for everyone to take some sort of activism, advocacy course, because regardless of which area of public health you're eventually going to go into, I really firmly believe that part of that is going to be advocating for either marginalized communities, for whatever population that you're planning to serve, whether it's through data, whether it's through research, and I think that's really what was missing for me.
Ellen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Those are all, really interesting ideas, Ruhi, that you're bringing up. When I was thinking about this question, I think this might end up becoming a common thread throughout all of our paths, but I do feel like both in undergrad and in grad school, I think it will be rare for someone to have interests that perfectly align with whatever curriculum is set up through a major or a master's or a PhD program. Just for myself, I know that I was taking kind of an unusual route with, studying applied math and then biostatistics, which are, quite technical fields. There's just so much theory, that you kind of have to understand, get through before you get to more of the applied problems. And I feel like I had to be very intentional throughout both undergrad and now grad school about kind of supplementing my technical, courses and research experiences with those more kind of, broad scope, policy oriented, community-based experiences, right? Just to be able to have the context for, what are we actually trying to do? What sorts of questions are the most kind of pressing ones to be asking? How should we be utilizing, this rich set of data science skills for the public good? So, certainly in undergrad, I tried kind of exploring some different things. My kind of primary community-based experience came from participating in Engineers Without Borders, which is a little bit more on the engineering side of things, but I was a little bit more on the, you know, fundraising and, you know, community outreach education aspect of it. And, you know, I felt like that was just so valuable for just more context about, you know, what sorts of, you know, I hesitate to say non-technical issues, but just like not, you know, math-based or engineering-based, you know, hurdles do you have to face with funding and, you know, making a project actually sustainable, which is definitely an overused word, but like it's so true that it's just, you know, how to guarantee or make the odds higher that a project is going to last beyond like, you know, the first 6 months to a year. All that kind of stuff, I agree, is just so crucial. And obviously I think it does depend a little bit on the path that you're trying to go through in public health. There are certainly people in my cohort in biostatistics who probably won't be doing anything community, you know, health related. Like if you're going and, you know, managing, you know, research design at, you know, MGH or, you know, like, you know, helping with, you know, vaccine development for a major company, like you're not necessarily, and maybe we would just kind of say that's like outside the traditional public health scope. But anyways, even at Chan, I feel like it has to be a very intentional path when you're in, especially one of these more kind of like traditionally technical disciplines, to seek out more opportunities for developing communication skills, developing just kind of your sense of things that are not just like, you know, more methods in R or, you know, study design. My, you know, curriculum is a lot of just kind of, you know, technical statistics courses. And we have a cognate requirement, which is, you know, a few classes that are in kind of a more applied area. So some people take that in the, you know, genetics direction. Some people take that in the, you know, infectious diseases direction. I'm taking it in kind of the environmental health direction, but, you know, it's not a very large requirement. So certainly for anyone who wants to be kind of more interdisciplinary with, you know, kind of a larger presence in public health, I do feel like there's kind of just, you know, the responsibility is that of the individual to seek out those experiences. And I certainly have some more thoughts about kind of how we could make, you know, public health more accessible, or, you know, kind of help more people get to this intersection of specifically kind of the math, computer science with public health, because I feel like there are a lot of ways in which people can kind of go down either route, but then it's like missing that middle part, but that might be beyond like this immediate question. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Cindy.
I think a lot of my thoughts are like very similar to yours, Ellen, and also Ruhi's. So in the social and behavioral sciences, or like health and social behavior track specifically, I've noticed that a lot of the focus is on intervention planning. And while that is like, I guess, important, there's a class that I took outside of the required courses that was absolutely fascinating to me. It was a community interventions course. The required ones I've noticed are just incredibly repetitive, and a lot of the courses, a lot of the assignments just kind of like overlapped with each other, and it felt like I was doing the same assignment but just for different courses. And I think a lot of my peers have expressed that like we get very confused as to which paper we're writing for what, because everything is just so similar with each other. So I think like if there were opportunities to actually use the interventions that we've just created and actually put them through like the iLab at Harvard, I think that would be very helpful, because sometimes it just feels like I've spent an entire course working on an intervention that I'm actually quite interested in implementing, but there's no support beyond that. So I think that's one that I've had slight issue with. And also having more accessible like epidemiology and biostats courses that are kind of the bridge between, I mean, Ellen, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of like really difficult courses, but for like people in my department, we're very new to this. So I feel like it's either a very beginner course or it's very, very difficult. And that's why I had to enroll in a course at the Graduate School of Education, because I thought that was like a good middle ground. It was the Intermediate and Advanced Statistical Methods in Educational Research, and I thought that one was brilliant. But yeah, I really couldn't find anything in the School of Public Health that I thought I would be confident in actually taking on and learning the concepts. So yeah, I think that probably is another weakness in the health and social behavior track, especially. And also, I guess, having theory-based courses, I think that would be really interesting. There's only one at HSPH, I think, that I found really fascinating, taught by Dr. Emmons. But if there could be more, that would be very useful, because I think a lot of interventions utilize a lot of theory, and it's very structural. It's very important for that intervention to actually play out. A lot of like people who are funding these interventions want to see that it's based off of some sort of framework. So I just would love like an extension to that course that I took on theory. That would be really nice. And I guess lastly, like grant writing. I know this is probably not interesting to every single person in public health, but I feel like grant writing is important regardless of what field of public health you're in. It's going to be associated in some sort of way, whether you're actually writing the grant or your projects are funded or not, and someone else is doing the grant writing. It's always going to be involved in some sort of way. So just some things in public health that definitely are missing in the HSPH curriculum.